remotely at school. They need to get out, but for us to have a successful season, we have to understand what the rules are and how we can work within them. So I thought we'd turn it over to Mark. And Mark, I thought you might want to cover the restrictions and rules during COVID. I'm sure most everybody knows them, but these are the rules we have to live by. Mark?
Yep. Thank you, Mike. So yeah, it's very unprecedented times for all of us. Like Mike mentioned, soccer as we know it is, at least for right now, is has to change how we do our training programs on the field. Obviously, we've heard that we can't play games and scrimmage. We're going to go over a little bit of that, but I'm going to go over straight from the California Department of Public Health, what they've issued out for, excuse me, get the light back on here, what they've issued out for the guidelines for youth sports. So I'm going to go ahead and go down some of the bullet points that they put out on a flyer. This flyer that came out from the California Department of Public Health came out on August 3rd. We are still under those rules, to my knowledge, and it changes daily. We check daily. So as of August 3rd, these were the guidelines for us opening up youth sports in California. The first bullet point they have listing on there is the number of people in a location. And what they've done with that is they do something called what is called a cohort. So this obviously was the first time I'd ever heard of that, a cohort, and I didn't quite know what it meant. But what a cohort is and what we are taking it as in AYSO is we're allowing no more than 14 participants in what's called a cohort, a group. If I'm not mistaken, schools have been doing this for a long time. For other situations, they keep what they call cohorts. I think it started in the academic side of things, but we're using it now in sports. So 14 is the magic number. We can't have more than 14. That includes 2 adults and up to 12 players out on the field. Some of the younger divisions will have obviously less than that, but the older divisions are limited to no more than 12 players per team, 2 adults on the field. So that's the first thing. The second thing in the bullet point they talk about is the type of location, and they differentiate between an indoor setting and an outdoor setting. So we're good there. We are obviously in an outdoor setting, so it matters to them. So we're fine with an outdoor setting. The next thing is the distance between people. They talk about that, and I think we've all heard that there's the 6-foot rule, and that will have to also be maintained throughout our practices. I know as a coach myself, it's probably going to be one of the most difficult things that we'll have to contend with as coaches on the field, because a lot of times the kids like to get in little groups when they're out there practicing, and we'll have to do our best to keep reminding them to try to maintain the 6-foot distance rule. So that's something that they've put out there. That's going to probably be the most challenging thing, I would think, is that. The next thing they talk about is the length of time at a location. So normally in the past, our practices are right about 50 minutes, an hour. So we are allowed 45-minute practices, and that's amongst all divisions. So our practices, they start on the hour. So it'll be like if you have a 7 o'clock practice, your practice will end at 7:45, so forth. And they start on the hour. So the next team would come in at 8. That would allow the 15-minute period for the previous team to clear the field and allow the next team time to get onto the field. So that's the length of time at location. The next thing is the physical contact between people. And I did some reading on that. Soccer is considered a close contact sport. So hence that being the case, we are not allowed to have scrimmages or games at this time. So that's the physical contact. So that's why, once again, at practices, our drills, we're going to talk about those. Mike will go into that more, but we'll talk more about that. But the drills, with that in mind, the physical contact amongst players. The next thing they talked about was the touching of shared objects. So that right there means all players should be using, obviously, their own soccer ball, their own equipment. Now, I have had questions. Can we kick the ball around between players? Yes, you can kick the ball around between players. One ball is fine, but they can't pick it up. They shouldn't be picking it up. But yeah, You can do drills where you kick one ball around and so forth. It's not including on the foot, that type of thing. So I did get a number of questions about that. So that's fine. The next one is the use of face coverings. So the rule as it stands now is the players, while they're practicing on the field, are not required to wear face coverings. They can be out there practicing, doing physical exertion without face coverings. Us as coaches, we have to unless we are actively doing physical exertion, we have to continue to wear our face covering while out there with the players. So, and the other rule with that is when they enter the field, that 15-minute grace period, when they show up before practice, all players should come onto the field with a face covering. And when they leave their practice time, they should head back to the parking lot with a face covering. So when they're on the field, so that's the use of the rule on use of face coverings. And then the final thing is they call it the mixing of people from locations with different levels of community transmission. And what they're talking about there is basically we're not having games. We're not going to be playing Ontario. We're not going to be playing amongst ourselves. That goes back to the cohort thing. So that's kind of the rules there in a nutshell. What I think most of us have heard most of those rules, but that's kind of the rules that we have to abide by to be allowed to open up and have youth sports. So I'll pass it back to you. Those are kind of the rules there.
Patrick, anything to add?
No, I think Mark pretty much relayed. I think everyone has gotten something from us or a different thing about how this goes. And if any of this changes, of course, you as the coaches will be the second to know because we'll actually be the first, as it stands now, to get out to you. So we all got our fingers crossed that we're going to step into another stage. But for now, we please ask you to try to follow the guidelines that are set down by what ASO set down from our county and of course the state. That's all we can ask for. And
Mike, can I say something?
Yes, of course.
We're not asking the coaches to be mask police. And of course, with the players on your team, you're the coach, you tell them what to do. But we don't want you to be looking at the parents, and if the parents are standing too close together and they're not wearing masks, you can mention it to them one time, but no confrontations. As you know, some people take it very personally. We are going to have field monitors, and the field monitors are being told the same thing. You can say something to somebody once, but don't get into a confrontation. If they say, no, I'm happy where I'm standing, then you just walk away. However, we will come back and do something about that. In other words, we're not going to take care of it on the field, but if we have a family that refuses to follow the guidelines, they're not going to get to participate in AYSO. I just don't want the coaches to feel like it's their job to enforce these rules. Mention it to your players, mention it to your parents, but don't get into any conversations.
And if I can add, I'm sorry, Mike.
Well, I was going to say, Joey, to summarize, coaches are on the honor system, and there's going to be some administrative support, hopefully, at the field.
Yeah, that's exactly how Joey, Mike, yeah, that's exactly how it's going to go. I mean, it's a public park where we're practicing, and my standpoint is as long as they're kind of up on the track and away from where we're practicing, where the kids are, I don't have what they do is what they do. And I don't expect you as the coaches to try to enforce everything with a family. Your job is to, make sure our kids have fun and to make sure they're safe. So, I said, if you have a problem, of course, you've seen it before, please reach out to myself, Mark, Mike, or most commonly, everyone sends their email to Joey. So Joey usually sees everything first, but please reach out and express your concerns. I mean, we're here to help you. That's why we're kind of set this up this morning. So once again, I said, thank you, and I'll bow out and let you go, Mike. Thank you.
All right. So our next topic's how to run a training session in time of COVID. And this is really geared towards coaches who are not intermediate advanced coaches or coaches with years of experience. It can be reviewed as a refresher if you are a very experienced coach. But most coaches know when you organize a team, you have a parent meeting and then a player meeting. When you have your parent meeting, in addition to everything, else that you cover, please cover the COVID rules. So that way the parents understand, and we know it's not traditional soccer, but at least we're out there and the parents can support the coaches when they talk to their children in the car to and from the session. With the players, please emphasize the rules. Frankly, I don't really have a good understanding of how well it's going to work with the youngers. Most of us know they play bunch ball anyway. They want to hug and grab each other. And so for the youngers, good luck. Training plans. This is usually presented in an intermediate or advanced course, but I think it's important to present it now. I view of a general training plan as a 4 or 5-step process, and it's always the same, a little bit like Italian cooking: olive oil, butter, garlic. You always have some type of warm-up. I'm going to call that a stage 1 exercise. The warm-up can be with or without a ball. It has to be minimum 6 yards apart. The warm-up can include an element of stretching, an element of fitness, and an element of touching the ball. We then get into what I'm going to call a stage 2 and a stage 3 activity. Stage 2 is usually a skill-based activity. When I say skill, I mean touching the ball, receiving a ball, collecting it, dribbling a ball, passing a ball, maybe finishing on a goal or striking against a net or a wall. Stage 3 is an increased skill activity. You're usually taking the same skill and making it more complex and adding some type of movement, and I'll talk about these in a moment. Stage 4 can either be an increased activity or some type of game or competition. We have to start thinking outside the box. We're not playing traditional soccer anymore. But that doesn't mean you can't create a competition. For example, if I had U14 players, we might have a juggling competition, and somebody might juggle it once and somebody else might have to juggle it twice, next person 3 times. And by the time you're at 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, it's becoming more complex and the pressure's on. The players are having a fantastic time because there's a winner and a loser. There's a competition. Then you have your stage 5 activity, which is some type of cool down. In a training, all individuals usually learn in 3 ways. Some learn by reading, some learn by watching, and some learn by participating in an activity. I can train anything socially distant by having a conversation, but it's never as fun as actually doing it. Mark, Pat, any thoughts about how you might run a training session?
Well, I know the steps Mike was just mentioning and talking about. We have over the years. When I first started, I didn't know what he's talking about, and over time, I learned the steps for a proper training plan, what we call. But I know we do follow that pretty much that outline right there. We always have a warm up at practice. We do something dynamic, some dynamic warm up, and even throw in some static warm up. But we do follow a pattern each practice. So to his point there, we start with the warm up always, then we go into some type of drill that we want the kids to do. The one that's going to be difficult, I think, this season, Mike, and for us as coaches, is I know a lot of coaches are used to having a scrimmage. They divide up their team and they scrimmage amongst each other, and the kids look forward to that. I know that is probably going to be the one hurdle that'll be a little more difficult than the others, is the elimination of being able to scrimmage amongst your own team. So that will just have to, like you said, a competition, put them up so they can still have some type of competitiveness, but in a social distance type of drill. So I like that. So
Pat, any thoughts?
Oh, actually, no, I think that what you gone through there, and unfortunately, as Mark pointed out, a lot of us as coaches, a lot of our opening warm-up drills and dynamic stuff usually involves, like Mike, you and I have done when we've coached together, is the group of 5, the 3-on-2 keep away. So we're going to have to just, as Mike said, think outside the box. I'm pretty sure we can come up with some competitive games. Like at the end of it, or some of you are familiar with the tic-tac-toe game, where they kind of just kind of lightly pass the ball into a larger area, try to make it a direct stop to create your X's and O's. You can space them out and do stuff like that. But it's going to be, I said, it's going to be a challenge for us, but I think we can come through with it quite well. So, yeah.
So let me summarize. I think we've discussed one of our troubles or areas of concern is the stage 4 activity, the gamer competition. We're just going to have to think outside the box. When I train coaches, I always emphasize, why do we have a gamer competition every session? And the answer is because that's what the players signed up for. That's what they want to do. And so we have to give it to them every session. But if we can't give it to them in the form of a traditional game, you're going to have to come up with another type of game. And you're only limited by your imagination in the things you can create. I thought I would switch to a different topic. And I thought I'd take a moment and talk about recommended areas of focus in training. And I thought I would discuss that the game of soccer is really broken down into 3 elements or 3 areas. There's a player's technical skill, what they can do with a ball, receiving it, controlling it, possessing it, dribbling it, passing it, and finishing, all areas of technical skill. The second area is fitness. Is a player ready to play a match? Is a player ready to be involved in a training session? That includes anything from warm-up to stretching to dynamic movement to just real, true movement. I'm not talking about running laps, but you can build a lot of movement and running into any session. The third element is tactics, and that's going to be really hard to focus on in our training, because I'm going to break down tactics into a couple of areas. We have individual tactics, small group tactics, and large group tactics, and they can be defending tactics and they can be attacking tactics. How do you teach defensive tactics when you can't have players within 6 feet of each other? I actually have a couple ideas I'm going to present in a moment. How do you teach goalkeeper tactics if a player can't pick up a ball with their hands? I actually have a couple of ideas which we can share in a moment. But I want to dial back to the philosophy of the game of soccer and the national coaching program. For the younger ages, the goal has always been technical, 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 and then more technical. And there's a reason. It's more fun to have the ball. It's more fun to develop skill on the ball. And as a coach in U14, 16, and 19, how do I teach tactics if I don't have players with technical skills? You can't teach tactically what you can't do technically. I call it going back to basics. And so this is actually an opportunity in training to go back to basics at every age level. And that's how you might see it. You might see it as an opportunity. For the older ages, as players become older and more skillful, we can introduce some tactics. And I think we can still do that even within the 6-foot distancing rules. Areas of elements of focus. I can do this within dynamic and fitness movement, and I'll give some examples. Maybe I have balls 20 yards apart. And maybe a player runs to a ball, makes a touch, makes a turn, then runs to another ball, makes a touch, makes a turn, dribbles, runs to another ball, makes a touch, makes a turn. They're getting their movement in. They're getting some touches in. They're 6 feet apart. We can work on anything involving technical, but I can also give examples of how you can focus on tactical. And so I'm just going to focus on the first element of defense, which in the book, some might call it delay. Some might call it marking up a player. Some may call it being touch tight, so close to your attacker, you can reach out and touch them. How do you teach that when you have a rule of 6 feet apart? And the answer is you can do it with flags or cones. I can have a player mark a cone, be in a defensive position, and then switch and mark another cone in a defensive position, and then switch to another cone and mark in a defensive position. I can set up a field where I have 3 players constantly switching cones, so they're moving as a group. And so I know how to build in, and I can help others come up with programs that actually allow you to be 6 feet apart and focus on some element of tactics, some element of movement and skills. Mark, Pat, your thoughts on elements of focus, the technical side of the game, the fitness side of the game, and the tactical side of the game.
One thing I can mention is a lot of times, especially with newer coaches, when we start delving into some of this stuff that we might be talking about, some of the terminology and things, especially as a newer coach, my only suggestion to that is those things, these terms that you'll start to hear more as you start to take more training courses and you move up in division, you'll become more familiar with them. I didn't know probably what Mike would have been talking about my first season, some of the technical terms, but I can tell you that it makes a lot of sense, and start off simple your first few training practices with how you do a drill, and then you can add to it. I would just highly suggest that, especially for newer coaches. Don't try to bite off more than you can chew immediately. Take it in small steps, and you'll get very used to it very quickly. So,
Mark, I don't want to step on your comments, but you're talking about buildup. In other words, you take a skill and then you add a step to it when it becomes successful. And then you add another step to it when it becomes more successful.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, for instance, you can take a simple, set up one cone and go 10 yards away and set up another cone and tell 2 kids, you stand by that cone, you stand by that cone, and you start passing back and forth. You can just start that simple. And I can tell you, someone like Mike, he could probably come over and he would see that simple drill that I just started, just a simple pass back and forth. And he would start to add to that drill to make it more complex and add more things to it. And he could turn that very simple drill into something over time that would be working on more of technical, the technical abilities that the players need. So
let me just take off on that for a moment. So Mark's probably talking about an instep receiving the ball and a instep passing the ball. In other words, pointing your toe out and hitting it with the side of your foot and keeping it on the ground. And it's a really basic skill. But if I want to make it more complex, maybe I want to have the players slowly moving backwards and forwards, keeping their same distance, but they're moving 10 yards while doing it. I'm taking the same skill and adding an element of movement. Maybe I'm taking the same skill and I'm putting a cone in between them so they have to do it while moving to the left or to the right. So they don't hit the cone and I have a passive defender. It's the same skill and I'm just adding an element to it. And you can continue to add as many elements as you want.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, that's, I said, I like that, as I pointed out, and you said both Mike and Mark started out with a simple pass. How we started with a simple pass. If your players cannot receive or deliver a pass, going beyond that and expecting them to do that on the field, they can't. It's where your tacticals start to fall apart. So as both Mike and Mark pointed out, that's where you're right there. You start with any practice, whether it's COVID or not, is the touches on the ball. They have to be able to receive a pass. They have to be able to put the pass to another player or to a spot. And then, as Mike mentioned, to build out from there. Okay, we're passing back and forth 10 yards. They're not stopping the ball, taking a step back and kicking it. They're actually touching the ball forward and then returning the pass and actually starting to get your side-to-side movement, your good first touch, or what we like to call the positive touch on that, and then continue to build up on that. I mean, sometimes for my youngers, I usually have them receive a pass, and if I can get my U8s and U10s not to stop the ball and take a big step away from it to pass it, you've succeeded with their first positive touch, which is great. And then build up on that. Have them now start pushing the ball with the outside of their foot, with their off kicking foot to, over the shoulder they kick from, and start moving it side to side and then returning a pass to the feet of the other player. I mean, there's hundreds of things you can do with just simple wall passing and then getting them to work off on that. So Mike and Mark, thank you very much for some really good points on that.
So a couple of thoughts before we move to another area. We're going back to fundamentals, going back to basics. And I would ask Pat and Mark, why is it that when a player collects a ball, they send it? And I'm guessing they would answer is because when a player gets the ball, they have responsibility. And everybody's looking at them. And there's pressure. And they don't like the pressure. There's a fear of failure. And so they send it so they can get rid of the pressure and the fear. And our job as coaches is to create a protective bubble learning environment where there's no fear of failure. And we're going back to fundamentals, and maybe we can add an element of pressure of movement where it starts breaking down a little bit, build it up, then add more pressure, more complexity to the same basic skill, to where when a player's in a game, eventually when we return to normal, they're surrounded by 3 defenders and they have the confidence to possess the ball and to deliver a pass under pressure.
Very, very good point, and I know some of these coaches I've coached against in the 14 level, and a lot of them stop playing kickball, and that's kind of what we want to do is get back to our basics, get back to a lot of the fundamentals, and take the kickball out of it. I mean, there is a time to send a ball, but unfortunately, 9 out of 10 times, a kid, as Mike pointed out, immediately gets the ball and then kicks it as hard as they can down the field.
So I guess even within COVID, I've crossed over into what I call the psychology of players, getting into their head and taking them back to basics and building confidence. Within every technical element of soccer, there's usually 4 to 5 steps. And I'm just going to give an example of dribbling. You need a soft touch. You need to be able to turn. You need to be able to change direction. You need to be able to beat a defender. You need to see where you're going. And within each of these elements of dribbling, and this is more intermediate advanced material, I can create a session that is within 6 feet. Within passing, I have to see the ball. I have to be able to move in line of flight of the ball. I have to have a soft touch. If I'm delivering a pass, I have to, or receiving a pass, I have to be prepared for my next move. Once I collect it, what am I going to be doing with the ball? Same with passing, same with finishing. We can break it down into multiple elements. And within each of those technical elements, I could create an entire training session within my 5 steps. I could create a training session focused solely on keeping my eyes up and vision while dribbling a ball. I'll give you an example of that. The players are in their own grids. You've taught them a dribbling move. They're practicing it. They're stopping the ball. They're starting their ball. They're moving around at different speeds, turning. And a coach wandering around the field 6 feet away might hold their hand up with a number of fingers up, and the players have to be able to do what they're doing while watching the coach, because they have to shout out how many fingers the coach is holding up. And so what I'm doing is I'm teaching the dribbling move, and I'm focused on vision and awareness around the field. I thought I might take a moment and talk about what you can teach even with goalkeeper training. And Pat, I didn't prep you for this, and I'm going to pick on you because I know Pat was a pretty skillful keeper in his day. And so, Pat, if I were covering 5 elements of goalkeeping, one of them is positioning, isn't it?
Actually, goalkeeping, a huge portion of it is positioning, which is when to know when to step forward, when to slide side to side. You have to be aware of the posts behind you. For what a lot of coaches do for shooting is when they teach how their players are shooting the ball, is you got to bring your head up, look, see where the keeper is for your opening spots. And the keeper's job, of course, is when a breakaway happens or any type of attack forms in front of them, they have to know when to cut down the angle, which is they take 3 steps out and 1 to their left, and all of a sudden this huge section of the goal for an attacker has now disappeared. The goalkeeper's also got to know when that person goes to shoot, when to set their legs, when to get up on their toes and prepare to jump or dive. So, I mean, there's actually several aspects from goalkeeping that you need to train on when we can actually touch the ball and pass it back and forth with our hands. So, but even without that, you can still teach them positioning, movement, and the same with you as if you're dribbling.
So if I have a goal, fantastic. If I don't have a goal, I set 2 cones 8 yards apart. I tell the keeper to be in position and ready. And as the coach wanders around, the angle changes on the goal, right? And
Correct. That's exactly how it's done. And, you, in the best scenario for both attacking and, of course, goalkeeper defense, you want them to be able to look, see it, and understand and realize where they're moving on that. So, yeah, you can use 2 cones or 2 flags.
Now I want to kick it up a notch and add movement. As the coach is moving around, I can have the player in goal take multiple steps to their right, touch the post, take several quick steps to their left, touch the post, and then to immediately spring to the spot where they should be in position where the coach is standing to cut off the angle.
Correct. Yeah, that's actually one of the dynamics warm-up drills that we have.
Then they could take a jog around the goal, touch each post twice while the coach changes position while they get to their spot, and do it quickly, all without a ball, all within social distancing. Is it as fun as playing a game? No way. Are we teaching the fundamentals of goalkeeping that are critical to their development? Absolutely. Mark, any other thoughts, comments on recommended areas of focus?
Well, I know I tend to kind of go back to, I'm thinking about a lot of the younger coaches, the younger divisions and the newer coaches here. Obviously, in those divisions, the younger divisions, there are no goalkeepers, so you probably wouldn't be, obviously not training a goalkeeper training. But when it comes to the stuff you were talking about, the drills, the examples of drills you were giving, a lot of these drills can be used amongst all divisions. Just like we talked about the simple passing drill back and forth and how we build off that. That simple passing drill can be used in everything from a U6 to all the way up, in my opinion. I think that but you would add to it, and you would start to add more into it. So The only thing that keeps coming to mind with the newer coaches in the younger divisions is try to keep it as simple as you can to start. Don't overwhelm yourself as a coach and think you have to go out there and perform a very complex drill and you have to know. A lot of you may be brand new coaches and you really don't have a lot of thought about, oh, what am I going to do for a drill? My suggestion is just keep it simple. Passing drills, little dribbling drills around the cones, the technical stuff that Mike and Pat have been talking about. So that's really my thoughts on that for build up, especially for the younger coaches.
So in summary, I think what coaches and those who are watching or learning is that this program is not designed to give you the drills or the exercises. If there's enough demand, we can create that program next, and we can give you some guidance as to where to find these exercises. Our goal is to help you set up the training session, help you set up the rules, the district follows rules, understand the elements you can work on. And let's take a moment and talk about equipment needed. Well, Mark, you nailed it when you said every player needs a ball. How can I have a player getting 1,000 touches on a ball 6 feet apart if every player doesn't have a ball? And the second element is that you have to have cones, I believe. You have to be able to create grids. They're very inexpensive. Pat in a moment is going to tell you how many cones he's bought for the region. Do I need anything else? The answer is I probably always carry a watch with me. And the reason is that if you have 45 minutes and you're doing 3, 4, 5 stages, well, that doesn't give you a whole lot of time. You're probably at 8 to 10. 8 to 10 minutes each stage. Excuse me.
So to real quick to add about, he mentioned a watch. Mike mentioned having a watch. I started a few years back for sure carrying a watch that has a stopwatch timer on it. Going back to the social distancing drills and how we can't do scrimmages, a lot of the little competitive things you can do can be a time thing. You can set up 2 teams and who can put in the most into a little net in 1 minute. And having that stopwatch helps. So that is a good piece of equipment I would recommend also.
But again, if you're going to have 4 or 5 stages, if you spend 15 minutes on one, then we're not given enough time to other stages. Pennies, I like pennies. I like teams in different colors, but you'd better be prepared to wash them every night before the next session, or you might want to give the penny to each player.
Mike, just a reminder, we decided not to do uniforms this year because we aren't confident we'll get into games, and that adds quite a bit to the cost. But we did provide every player with a reversible penny. It's actually a jersey, but it's made out of penny material. We had Pat's daughter try it on. She said she would wear it by itself. Mark, say something so you take over the screen and then they can see it. You just got to talk so we see it.
So the penny he's talking about is this. If you can see what I'm holding up, you can reverse it completely to be the red side and the black side. It's actually very, very nice. Nicest penny I've ever owned. So that's going out to all the players this season. So all coaches they should have already got these. So at uniform night. So
whoever thought of that idea on the board should get some recognition. That's a great idea.
And Joey's pointing at himself, so actually it was a good idea. And just so coaches moving forward, it's so a lot of this was thought out. So if we do step up to stage 2, where they're allowed to scrimmage and stuff like that, and we actually have a chance to do games, that will be their uniform. Like home team will wear black and visiting team will wear red. So just to give you a heads up, that keeps the cost down to families, and we're not trying to rush uniforms out to everyone. So, but if it does step up to that, we will obviously go more into that. So But it does help for practice. That way your team now looks uniformed. And I think that's what a lot of the, especially the older players, even the younger players, they got a uniform. They get to wear it to practice. It's kind of cool. So hopefully they enjoy.
So Mike, oh, I'm sorry. So Mike, I'm getting some questions in the chat, and one that they're talking about the goalkeeping. You mentioned not having a goalkeeper use a ball, but I just wanted to point out we're not allowed to share equipment. So to my knowledge, we're not going to be doing goalkeeper training as per se, like shooting a ball at a goalkeeper and letting him knock it away with his hands. Until we hear otherwise, we're not going to allow that from a goalkeeper, unless that's what I understand it to be. So I know we got a few questions about that. Any comments, Pat or Mike, on that? If I'm or Joey, I mean, that's my understanding of it, that we're not allowed to. It was
It's because the handling of the ball is one of the things that they, for whatever reason, they were really strict with on handling of the ball. So that doesn't, when you usually do drills like that, you have more than one person touching it. So I don't know, that's when I mean handling, I mean physically picking up and holding the ball. I could see several ways around it, but for right now, let's not kind of worry about training our goalkeepers for punching and that. I know that is from as a goalkeeper myself, that's very essential for them. But currently, as Mark said, we kind of want to shy away a little bit from that. So that is practice on their own at home with a parent or a sibling.
A quick comment on that, and then we're almost done, so let's save the chat questions for a moment. But if everybody thought about how many times without knowing it, their hands have touched their face while we've been on this program, we couldn't mention it. And I think that's one of the theories or reasons why we don't want keepers handling a ball during this period of time. I want to go to training objectives, which is a very short comment. Players don't like just doing physical activity. They don't like fitness. My theory has always been keep it fun. Players love fun. Play games. The players always love games. It's just not a traditional game of soccer. You have to come up with other games. Where can you get information? We can get information from the AYSO National website. The national website has lots of exercises and drills. If you're fortunate enough to have access to a coaching manual or book from AYSO, Patrick, are they electronic on our website?
Actually, it's you go to AYSOU, everything's now electronic and downloadable from that. So for whatever division you're in, that's where you have to go for it.
Your U8, U10, U6, each one of these manuals has training sessions and things you can do within your age group. Frankly, you can even go on YouTube or resources outside of AYSO. You're only limited by your imagination and what you can create. And if you want to have a little fun, just for the fun of it, after our session today, type in freestyle soccer on YouTube. And you'll see individuals doing just ridiculous soccer tricks with a soccer ball. And if you can even teach one or two of these moves, it's cool, it's fun, it's social distancing. So I thought I'd turn it over to Mark and Pat and go, anything else before we go to open discussion?
Mike, can I just insert, since you're talking about the availability of resources on our region website, on the coaches page, we do have the things from the ASO website. They're age-specific activities for coaching in a modified environment. So you just have to go to the coach page of the website to get the stuff that's on the ASO national page.
And I do want to point out what Mike said, going on YouTube and that. Please do keep in mind your target audience. So if you're a U10 coach, you're not going to be pulling up drills from Milan's national team and, trying to do those. But just please keep in mind that what your age group that you are coaching.
Open discussion, questions from the chat room?
I have tracked the questions. Why don't you let me go through the ones that we've gotten from chat, and then we'll open it up.
Sounds good.
All right. The first one was just a reminder from Ivan. If you haven't completed all your online courses, please do that. We really need it done before you start practice.
Hey, Joey, does that include your pre-advanced course? If you took your advanced course in 2015?
If you're certified, you're certified.
Okay.
But he's really pointing more towards, there's a new cardiac course that everybody's required to take. So that's kind of the one that people are forgetting about. Obviously, Safe Haven, concussion awareness, things like that. But I know Ivan's been bugging people individually. So if you need to finish something, you probably know about it from Ivan. There was a question if there's any guidance on reporting, because obviously if you get a member of your cohort coming in with some symptoms of COVID, you're going to stop practice and you're going to have to report it. Sandy Orley is putting that together, and I don't know the status of it. I just emailed her, so we hopefully will get some more details, and obviously that'll go on the website. Keep your eyes on the coaches page of the website. Are the rules for the field listed somewhere on the website? Yes, they are. They're currently on the Fall 2020 registration page. So if you go to the Fall 2020 registration page, the very top in big red letters say, if you don't agree with these restrictions, don't register. And underneath it are the restrictions. And the first couple have to do with the field, the restrictions, how far away people have to stand, et cetera. Let's see. So even with the gloves, goalies cannot touch or punch the ball out. As of now, I think they covered that. The answer is no. Let's see. Will 16, 19 teams be able to use nets or have access to nets? One of the things, and I forget if Mark mentioned it, but I think he did, is we're not allowed to share equipment. So if you want to bring nets, you can. But as far as using the region nets, that would be considered sharing equipment. And we've had to, certify to the county and to the city that we are following all those rules. And one of them is no sharing equipment.
Let me touch on that one real quick, Joey. And for the olders, obviously, you're going to have the half the field. You will have a goal. As Joey pointed out, if you want to bring a net, please, you can use the net, but limit how it's being put up, Coach. You're going to have to put it up yourself. One of the other comments I saw a little bit farther down, and asked for the 8U, can you bring your own net? Yeah, but once again, please limit on how it's shared and put it up in that. So, Coach, if you're bringing a net, like I use pop-ups and then a full-size goal if need be, but just if you're doing it, please treat and handle it yourself, just so we're staying within our guidelines put up. That way there's no arguments, no finger pointing, no one going, oh my gosh, my coach did this. We just want to kind of avoid that and keep it centered on the kids going out and getting a chance to run around and have fun.
Then the last one I have, although I see there's a few new ones, how far do parents need to be at practice, or are they allowed to be there? So the county guidelines actually say that you can have, you should only have your parents in the parking lot. That works for some fields. Fontana was able to do that, but our fields are just a little too spread out. We talked to the city and we talked to them about having parents of the younger kids be at the practice, and they said, yeah, we could do that. We then realized that this is a public park, so we can't really tell anybody, ASO or otherwise, stay out of the park. And so what we've come up with is ideally, you would have them on the walking track. That's far enough away that there's no interaction, but we had to come up with some number, so we came up with 10 yards. So again, we don't want you to be police, but if your parents are hanging out on the touchline, and everybody should have seen this, it's on the website, just ask them to give you 10 yards so that you can be on the sideline, you can have your kids there, and you don't have parents interacting. But it is a public park, again, so we're not really saying nobody can be at the park, and hopefully that 10 yards, and that's 10 yards from the field. So coaches, hopefully you're on the field, your players are on the field. You go to the middle of the field, you got more than 10 yards, but we do want the parents away from the field. I've gotten a lot of questions. I have to bring my toddler with me. We want the families to stay 6 feet apart, just like every other, restaurant and gas station, wherever you go, within their little group. We want them to wear masks. But as far as how far from the field, we're saying 10 yards. That's
Joey,
all oh, wait, there's one more. Sorry.
There's one more question. I saw that one.
I know there are still some changes still taking place. Would it be safe to contact our team parents now? Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. We expect you to contact you. In fact, you cannot imagine how many emails I've received in the last 2 days, which prompted the email that you probably all got from me this morning at 8 o'clock, explaining that the coaches are just a couple days behind. They only just got their uniforms. They now have their rosters and their fields, practice fields. Yes, coaches, please contact your families. They are out there anxiously waiting to hear from you. The rules, if they change, we'll repost them, but you should be able to tell them everything that they've already read on the website. Hopefully nothing really significant has changed, nothing that I can think of anyway.
Just to add to that real quick, for an example, like we just received our rosters as coaches on Wednesday night. So normally by Friday, we should have all contacted. By tonight, we should have all, or by last night, we should have all made contact with our parents. So you can have your team parent, like I have my team parent / player meeting this evening. It'll be at Barrel. It will be out on the field where there's space to space out. Yes, you can have them all together, but they need to maintain the 6 feet. So you're going to have parents and players all out on a field, whatever you decide to set up. Go over the rules then with them at the parent meeting. But yeah, I got a question earlier this morning. Can we even have a parent team? Yes, you can, as long as it maintains the social distance guidelines. So just wanted to throw that out there.
That's probably going to be the hardest part for the younger divisions, like the 6s, even the 8s, the 10s, is you might have a lot of intermixing of parents and players on the sideline because they're little kids. If something happens, they immediately run over to where their mom is. So, especially for the youngers, please just have that friendly conversation saying, hey, we need to try to do our best to keep the social distancing and stuff like that. So if anyone also has a problem, or as Joey pointed out, just give us an email, contact us, and we can help out in any way possible.
And Pat, to add to something real quick that just came to mind, was some of you as coaches have received your rosters, and it might have said on the front, players missing COVID-19. If you did receive a roster where it says that what that means is the family did not sign the COVID waiver, which we're all required to sign, players, volunteers. So that they probably listed, like with my team, I have one individual that hasn't signed. So I need to talk to that parent privately tonight and just remind them, go to the website and update that and get their COVID paperwork signed, e-signed. So
Thanks,
they can
Mark.
e-sign it. Yeah. So.
Let me just add a little bit to that, and I apologize for this bit of confusion. We first identified 200 players who didn't have their paper signed, and that was when we printed the rosters. Now, I know for the olders, which is 14 and above, the registrar tried to keep track of people who signed since then. Since then, about 300 of the 400 have signed. So for the youngers, 8U to 12U, it's quite likely that the parent will say to you, oh, I did, and and if that's true, just have them contact me. Some of them think they signed and they didn't. In fact, I would say almost half the people who think they signed the wrong season. But if you have a parent push back and say they did sign it, there's a pretty good chance they did, and just have them contact me. But by the way, we cannot take hard copies. So if a parent says, look, I printed it, here it is, it's got to be signed online. That's the only way we can track them. So if they did sign it online and then printed it, they're probably good. But if they printed it and then signed it with ink, unfortunately, that's not going to work for us. We just have no way to track. Fortunately, we have 725 players, which I'm pretty happy about. It's much smaller than usual, but for this type of a season, that I think that's good. But that's a lot of people to track, and so that's why we have to do it online.
So, I guess, if we've covered everything from our standpoint, let's, we can open it up to general, questions and conversation, if that's good with you guys.
There was one question that I noticed you answered in the chat, but it was, can we start practice Monday? Yes, 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 please. If you can contact your players. A lot of players out there are asking me, where do I go on Monday? So yeah, if you can start.
To answer the other one, if we do go to phase 2 and games start, do we need to recruit referees? I would say, hopefully let's look forward and keep our thumbs up and say yes, but let's cross that bridge when we get there, because that'll be Joey's department. He'll have to browbeat everyone to get their referees.
Yeah, it's not going to be your typical season. If we do get to play games, we may or may not have referees. We have to go through the whole training and registration and everything. Referees. I'm kind of keeping this optimistic hope that we'll get to play a few games in January. I don't really know that that's the case. So for now, don't worry about it. I can't do training anyway, so I appreciate the offers, but we're just going to have to play it by ear probably. And once if we do learn we can have games, we'll try to figure out what to do with referees.
Thank you, Joey.
One of the other questions, I know a lot of you are asking questions about practices and practice fields right now. So Ivan is in charge of our practice fields right now, and he's doing a great job at trying to accommodate everyone. But this is the time of the season that he goes through a lot right now, with a lot of emails he gets and such. And I know he's doing the best he can at trying to accommodate everyone. But I know that he did send out an email to all coaches, should have received it, and it had instructions in the email of how to go and pick your practice field based on what you put in your coach's profile. So the quicker we can get those all into the system, if you haven't done your practice field yet, please take care of that as soon as possible. If you do have a question, you can send him an email, but I will tell you that he does get a lot of emails right now, and so he does get quite a bit at this time with questions about practice fields. So just bear with him while he gets it all sorted out. He's really good about trying to accommodate everybody with what they want with the practice field. Unfortunately, we have all our practice will be at Barrel Park. So we really, between the 71 teams, I think it's 71 teams we have, we all are going to be at Barrel Park. So you can imagine the juggling that has to go on to try to get all of our teams a practice spot at Barrel Park. So just be patient with that, but try to get your practice field selected if by the end of today, if you haven't yet.
We got a few more questions. Saturday practice schedule. There's going to be a survey that goes out to see if people want to practice on Saturdays. I know that we originally advertised that we would practice 2 midweek days and a Saturday, but we got a lot of feedback that people may not be interested in Saturdays. So we're going to kind of see what the interest level is, and then we'll decide. One of the issues we have is we're not sure we can accommodate all the teams at Burrell on Saturdays, but until we get a feel for what the interest level is, we won't have to make that decision. Will the field be marked as to where our team will practice? Kind of. So I believe what he did is, I believe he painted a line from one goal to the other goal, which you never see on a soccer field. That'll help those of you that are in quarters. I believe for those of you that are in thirds, he was going to paint just hash marks on the touch line. So when you get to your field, there should be a hash mark. But generally, we do not paint the fields for practice. We generally just depend on the coaches to get along and figure out what a quarter of a field looks like, or a third of a field, or a half. Obviously, the half of the field, you'll know. So should we start practices on Saturday? Same answer. If they can juggle the ball without, the player can do anything they want with their own ball. Player can handle it. Obviously, they're going to handle it to bring it onto the field. There's no sharing of balls, and that's why. So I don't believe juggling is an issue, because they're using their own ball.
It was actually the header. If they could juggle the ball without using their hands, because they do a header. I would classify headers and stuff like that. Once again, it's like the goalkeeper punching the ball with the group together. Let's try to avoid that right now. But I do know that a lot of coaches, especially for the olders up in the divisions that can head, proper heading techniques is very good to avoid injuries. But right now, let's do our best to just kind of follow no handling for, back and forth for the soccer balls and stuff like that.
The next one had to do with lights, and this is from an old timer because we don't do key codes and lights anymore. Unfortunately, that was back in the day when it was free. We pay for the lights now, so we turn them on and off remotely. Jeff Gaines, myself, Ari, Ivan, I believe, turn them on and off. So if you get to a park and you discover the lights aren't on, go ahead and text one of us. I would start with Jeff because he tries to be the primary guy, but you can always text me as well. And I'll go in and see if the lights aren't on. We're doing that 45-minute practice thing, which means that for those of you that have the last practice of the night, your lights will go off right before the hour. We used to give you 15 minutes after the hour, but now since you're doing a 45-minute practice, if your practice ends at 9, you're going to want to at least be on your way back to the car by 9. The scheduler shows the field's not in use, and my team is one of the teams in the middle. If the lights are on, can we use the open field? If the lights are on and you're not, trespassing, yes, you can. But if somebody comes and says, "Oh, we're late," please be kind and give up the field. But yeah, you're right. There may be empty fields, and we're not going to turn the lights on for that. But if the lights are on, you should be all right. Yeah, if the whole field is empty, the lights won't be on. So, for example, we tried to do that. We tried to keep, if the last hour on East 1 is empty, we didn't put anybody on East 1, so we turned the lights off. It costs us about $7.50 an hour a field, which doesn't seem like much, but it turns into thousands of dollars. In fact, it's one of our biggest expenses right now.
Joey, can you hear me?
Ivan, your mic isn't working.
Okay, well, if you can, I put responses in the chat window.
Oh, okay.
He said he put some responses in the chat window to some of the questions.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So let's open this up for general questions.
Hang on, still got another question. Still got more in here. Do the lights go out at 9 or 9:15? I think I just answered that. They go out at 9. In fact, if you're the last one, they go out at 8. If there's nobody on there at 9. Okay. The only real easy way to ask questions, I think, is the chat room, because if I unmute everybody, or if you want to unmute yourself and ask a question, let's give it a try. We'll see how that works.
Let's try unmuting yourself and asking a question. We'll go that way. That way, we're not constantly switching over to chat to see if we're not stepping on toes. That's all.
I did get another question. Barrel Park on Carnelian and not East Barrel. No, we're using the whole Barrel Park. So when you chose your field, you chose East 1, East 2, West 1, or West 2. And the 2 East fields, you would normally park at the East end off of Barrel. The 2 West fields, you would normally park off of Carnelian. But we're using all 4 fields.
All right. Thank you very much, Joey. Questions from anyone?
What's up?
Now we're just asking if any coach had a question about anything discussed or want us to elaborate on something.
Quick question, Joey. Can you enable the screen share?
I don't know.
It wasn't letting me do it.
Yes, I can. Yes. Okay, it's enabled.
Hold on. Okay, so.
I have a question.
So this is the coach's webpage that we talked about earlier. The materials are available.
We're not seeing it.
Are you not?
No,
Still
but
loading.
Would you like me to do it?
Yeah, sure. Just go to the. I put a couple things there for the links to the chat and the other stuff. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So go ahead and unshare or stop sharing.
Yeah, I just clicked it. It's spinning.
Yeah, and it seems to have me taken too. Let me see if I can share my screen.
So David said he could hear me, but you can't, Joey? Not
I
clearly?
can hear you, but your microphone is broken. It's the same problem you've had before.
Yeah, I know. I'm on the laptop. I didn't call in.
All right. Okay, can everybody see the website?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead and describe it if you want, Ivan, and I'll try to scroll if you need me to scroll.
Well, it's just right there. It's the coach's page. The 3 images there, those are the age related documents. I believe that was sent out also in an email.
I just clicked
So those are the skills, the drills, and stuff that ASO has put together to assist you with your, in your practice. So you're not seeing, just below that, for some reason it's not showing up on your page. Maybe you can refresh? Just below those documents are some links that will be for this Zoom call chat log for the questions.
Oh, right, which haven't been updated yet, haven't been populated.
Yeah, I made those changes, but it's not showing on your page for some reason.
Oh, I see. Hang on. Yeah, it's because I've had it up there for a long time.
Oh, okay.
Is it there now?
Should be. Oh, your screen? Yeah.
Coach's Fireside. Oh, there it is. Yeah, okay. So yeah, we will put a recording of this, and we'll put the questions and answers on there. Somebody had a question about heading when juggling. We are allowed to pass a ball among players. Are we allowed? No, you're not allowed. I think they answered that. Are you allowed to head the ball between players? Arnold, why don't you unmute and ask your question?
Thank you. So you just, I'm sorry. You just said we are not allowed to pass a ball among players?
No.
With your feet?
You can. With your feet, you can.
Feet? Yeah.
We're not allowed to handle the ball and hand it off to other players. You're allowed to pass the ball amongst the players with their feet. They just don't want you guys handling the ball. They were very, very strict in handling seems to be their term. Passing the ball around with their feet from one player to the other is fully acceptable. As for the juggling, yeah, if they can juggle and then head it on their own solely, that's great. And I said I don't mind that, but once again, it falls under the same stuff that as goalkeepers are doing. We just don't want one player picking up another player's ball and handing it off. And I'm just trying to adhere to what Nationals handed down through the state of California. That's all.
Okay. So if we don't touch it with our hands, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's kind of great for coaches anyways. But
Yeah,
they can juggle. If they're juggling by themselves, they can head it and whatever. Just no hands.
Correct. No hands.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, Joey, one more. If you can go to the practice schedule page.
Oh, hang on. There you go.
Slow down a little bit. Okay, so someone had asked about the lines on the field. I believe Jeff is drawing lines down the middle, right? Is that
Yeah,
correct?
from goal to goal.
Okay. So you'll see, you should be able to see that when they're in quarters, but for the 14 U's, they have a third. They're going to be, I guess there's going to be like some hash marks off to the side on the touch line on where the third of the field would start. So you guys are going to be sharing the field, 3 spots rather than the usual quarter field.
Yeah,
So you can look at this, guys. If you look at this here, you look at your practice schedule request. For example, let's look at Tuesday, Thursday on East 2 at 6 o'clock. We've got the East 2 field, the west side of the field. You have a north and a south. So if your practice schedule request says west side north, it's the top of the field, closest to the walking path. If it's west side south, it's the field along the freeway. there's always a lot of confusion about that, and someone asked a question, so I thought I'd point that out. That's it.
Thanks.
So
Any other questions?
if we have any coach questions about what was discussed, stuff like that, or that, go ahead and unmute yourself and ask that question, and I'm pretty sure we can hopefully get it fielded for you.
I have a question regarding as coaches. You had said that when we enter a field, we must wear a mask unless we're doing an active drill. So, you know, most of the time we are active while we're out there coaching. So when we're kind of just standing around, we got to throw it back on. Is that the case, or is it if we're running around, we're moving,
Yeah.
we're constantly moving?
To my understanding,
It's kind of a gray area.
yeah, it is a little bit of a gray area there. But to my understanding, the reason the players don't have to wear a mask is because they're doing physical exertion during the practice. They're not required. Us as coaches, some of us are more active coaches and get involved in moving around, maybe demonstrating a drill and such. As long as, to my understanding, as long as we're maintaining 6 feet of distance and we're doing physical exertion as a coach, I think it would be, my opinion is you do not have to wear the mask at that time. But we would like all the coaches, if you're not involved in that way, to go ahead and keep your mask on the entire practice if you can. So just to set the example about masks for what we're trying to do for our region right now. So that's really all I can speak to that. Really, it is a little bit of a gray area, I guess, but that's the way I would interpret it. Hopefully that answered your question.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Coach Brad here, and again, thank you very much for putting this on today. Very helpful.
You're welcome.
Hey, this is Larry Salmon. I just have questions on the phases and the timing of it all. Like if and when we were to transition, is there going to be a transition period? Because like say, for example, if we're waiting for referee or we get the green light for phase 2 and maybe we don't do referee, there's, you know, if we don't have people trained, it's going to
I can answer that, Larry.
You know what I mean?
Yes, and I can answer that. We have no idea. I mean, you know, we're all in the exact same place you are. I mentioned that I'm hopeful that they'll let us play. I don't have a clue if they'll let us play. In fact, if I was betting my, tomorrow's dinner on it, I'd probably bet against it. I would bet against us getting to play this season, but that doesn't mean we're not going to get to play. I just saw a very interesting website that shows state by state how the growth is going, and California is actually doing quite well relative to other states. Not great overall. Unfortunately, San Bernardino County not that well. But I mean, those are the kind of things that are going to decide whether we get to play. So yes, of course there'll be a transition. You know what we're thinking is, let's say they do let us play in January. It's probably not going to be the typical league you're used to. It's probably going to be something more like maybe pickup games or a jamboree. I mean, we're going to really wing it. We're going to get the kids out there running around, kicking the ball into the goal. But what that looks like, we'll decide when it comes along. I mean, we could make all kinds of contingency plans, but I just don't see the value of that because we're so clueless.
No problem. Thanks.
We're losing a few people. We've lost about 15. Maybe it's time to wind up.
I said, did anyone else have any questions? Because if we have no more questions, we can wrap it up. And before the last question is asked and we actually sign off, I want to thank you all for your time and coming here today and dedicating at least the time to listen, ask questions. And it shows that you're interested, that you want to help, and that's great. And so thank you very, very, on behalf of the coaching staff, thank you very, very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Joey, a final thought. In Region 65, we're very lucky that we actually are having a season, even if it looks like this. Was chatting with a friend of mine that's in Region 165, the mountain areas. They don't have a season at all. There are other regions that don't have a season at all, and at least we have something. The second thought is this program was well received, and if there was a benefit to putting on another program, for example, specific trainings for specific topics, reach out to Joey, Pat, or Mark, and if there's enough interest, we can do that.
And if anyone needs cones or something like that, please hit me up. I ordered a bunch for the region for coaches and that. So I don't have soccer balls, but I do have I have cones if anyone needs cones. So.
Pat, how many cones did you buy as the region for this year?
I got my first set of I think it's 500, 300 or 500. I can't remember which. It's just a lot.
All right, with that, I'm going to end the meeting. Thank you, everybody. We will get the both a recording, audio and video on the website, and I'll try to get the questions and answers. It just depends on how much processing it takes. It's going to be a pretty big file. Thanks again.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you guys for hosting.
Thank you.